You wake to a dry wind that tastes of dust and olives, yet it carries the cries of a world you can no longer touch. The sun glares through the cracks in the clay walls, painting stripes across your bruised skin, yet the warmth offers no comfort. The smell of earth and sweat clings to everything, a reminder that survival here is measured in pain and absence. If you've ever wondered what it meant to be at the mercy of fate in a world both brilliant and brutal, take a moment now to like this video, subscribe, and join a conversation that spans centuries. Comment below with the city or country where you're watching from. I'm fascinated by how stories of lost lives in ancient Greece can connect us across oceans and generations. Together, we trace the echoes of lives that history almost forgot. In the rolling valleys of rural Greece, villages huddled among olive groves and sun-baked hills were both idyllic and fragile. Children ran barefoot through the dirt paths, laughter threading between the low, thatched houses, while goats and chickens wandered amid piles of grain and broken pottery. Yet beneath this simplicity simmered desperation. A season of poor rains, a father struck by illness, a harvest lost to blight, any of these could tip a family into debt beyond redemption. And when that tipping point arrived, it was not abstract punishment, but flesh and blood that paid the price. At 12 years old, a boy might not understand the arithmetic of survival, yet he knew when hope vanished from his household. His father's hands trembled as he exchanged silver coins for the boy's freedom. Freedom, in the eyes of the village, meant an opportunity. But opportunity in the world of the powerful rarely bore the weight of kindness. It was a currency that only those with wealth could afford to mint, and the cost was measured in childhood stolen and spirits broken. Merchants arrived in the villages like vultures, ledgers in hand, coiled ropes at their sides. Their eyes swept across the children, cataloging muscle, symmetry, and temperament as if examining livestock. Phrases like promising and well-bred passed silently over young ears, heavy with implications the boy could not yet name. His mother would avert her gaze as her child's teeth were checked, as hands roamed over shoulders and chest, as the promise of a future life was traded for the immediate relief of silver. The journey to the city was a trial without ceremony. Chained in pairs, the boys walked over roads scorched by sun and dusted with the whispers of wildflowers and herbs they would never see again. Their feet bled, their mouths cracked from thirst, yet the march persisted. Older captives moved in stoic silence, a grim choreography born of survival, while the younger ones cried until the sound became hollow in their throats, muted by repeated strikes and shouted commands. From the peaks of mountains to the glimmering coastline, Greece revealed itself in breathtaking vistas, yet the captives' eyes only saw chains, and the rhythm of relentless footsteps became the only landscape they knew. At night, the boys were tethered to wooden stakes or placed in narrow pens, the cold seeping through their thin garments. Iron collars bit into necks, and the cries of neighbors mingled with their own, creating a chorus of despair. Sometimes, merchants brought buyers to inspect the merchandise. Men with soft hands and calculating eyes prowled among the captives, testing muscle, reflexes, and even the pliancy of obedience. Here, the line between labor and pleasure blurred in ways that young minds could scarcely comprehend. One boy, whose name was barely remembered by anyone but himself, discovered quickly that survival required a quiet mind and a still body. He watched as companions were singled out, as certain buyers whispered instructions and touched in ways that were frighteningly intimate. He learned to anticipate gestures, to lower his gaze, to turn his body into something pliable, acceptable, and invisible. Even in chains, even amid the most intimate violations, he found that invisibility became its own kind of armor, a fragile shield against the crushing certainty of ownership. The auction itself was a theater of control. Boys were oiled, scrubbed, and dressed in tunics designed not for modesty but for assessment, the sunlight catching their skin like polished bronze. They were described aloud, age, height, strength, temperament, all cataloged as though they were tools or instruments. Bidders whispered among themselves, hands brushing arms and shoulders, seeking a combination of obedience and beauty. When the hammer fell, a boy's life shifted entirely. Names, homes, and histories evaporated in the exchange of silver coins, leaving only the reality of possession. Yet, even in this darkness, some light persisted. The boy observed the quiet solidarity of others, subtle gestures of reassurance, whispered words in forgotten dialects, the shared memory of a home he might never see again. There were no grand rebellions, no dramatic rescues, but a delicate web of observation and instinct that offered a fragile hope. Survival did not require surrendering everything, only enough to live through the day. And as the sun rose over another olive grove, gilding the hills in amber light, the boy understood a brutal truth. The civilization lauded for its philosophers and poets could produce beauty and wisdom, yet underneath it thrived on the suffering of its most vulnerable. The chains that had first cut into his skin would not only mark his body, they would shape his very perception of the world, teaching lessons in endurance and invisibility that would last long after the journey to the city had ended. He did not yet know the names of those who would control him, the rituals he would endure, or the darkness waiting behind the marble columns of Athens, but the echo of sandals scraping stone had already engraved itself into his memory, a sound that would follow him forever, whispering of a freedom forever out of reach. The scent of oil and wine hangs thick in the air, mingling with cold marble and polished wood, yet there is no warmth here, only the illusion of refinement. Light glances across gilded walls, but shadows cling to corners where laughter masks something darker. In this house, beauty is measured, catalogued, and consumed, and the price of a single glance may echo for a lifetime. Inside this gilded prison, the world stretches across centuries, yet the sensations feel immediate. If you are captivated by the hidden lives of the past, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and comment with the city or country from which you are watching. It's astonishing to see how stories from ancient Athens can ripple across the globe, connecting us in shared fascination with human history, cruelty, and resilience. Every comment and subscription is a thread in the tapestry of discovery, binding viewers across time and space in the pursuit of understanding. The boy who had once trudged through olive groves now stands beneath the marble columns of Lysander's home, the air heavy with incense and oil. His body, once raw and exposed to the sun and dust, is now oiled and scrubbed to a sheen, his skin catching the golden light as if it were meant to be admired. Here he is no longer a child, he is an ornament, appraised by men whose intellects are celebrated in public, yet whose private indulgences reveal a hunger for dominance and control. Demetrius, the overseer, watches with eyes honed by years of obedience and cruelty. "Move with grace," he instructs, voice low and steady, yet carrying the weight of expectation. Every motion, every glance must please. Fail, and you learn quickly why compliance is easier than resistance. The boy obeys, noting the subtle changes in posture, the way shoulders must tilt, the hands remain soft yet ready to serve. Every step is calculated, each breath measured against the invisible rhythms of power in this household. In the kitchens, the scent of baking bread and roasting lamb fills the air, yet it offers no comfort. The sounds of clattering bronze and whispered orders underscore a constant tension. Slaves moving like shadows, invisible yet present, their bodies performing rituals designed to erase selfhood. Here, learning is obedience, knowledge is fear. Meals are served with precision, but the silence behind polite gestures conceals a hidden language, a glance to signal danger, a tremor of the hand to indicate leniency, a subtle nod that binds those who endure together in quiet solidarity. As evening falls, the symposium begins. The guests recline on couches arranged around a central table, voices flowing in cultivated discussion. They speak of virtue, justice, and the nature of the gods, their words elegant, their gestures measured. Yet beneath the veneer of civility lies a theater of domination. The boy watches as some guests lean too close, their hands brushing shoulders or thighs under the guise of conversation. The room smells of wine, perfume, and oil, each aroma layered with the unspoken language of ownership. The first command for special service arrives subtly. A guest, a man whose robes speak of wealth and whose eyes gleam with curiosity, gestures for the boy to pour wine. The action seems innocent, yet the atmosphere shifts imperceptibly. "Present yourself well," whispers Demetrius, and the boy obeys, muscles tense, mind alert to the signals that distinguish between routine tasks and predatory intent. Each movement, each compliance, teaches a lesson in survival, a silent curriculum in the art of invisibility. The boy notices others in the household, older and younger, each bearing the same weight of forced knowledge. Marcus, whose body bears the scars of prior failures, leans in and murmurs advice in a voice carefully measured not to attract attention. Alexios, scarred and silent, observes the guests and deciphers their moods, offering instruction without speaking. Together, these subtle guides teach him the unspoken rules: which gestures invite favor, which expressions provoke wrath, which silences protect the spirit even as the body is claimed. Jewelry glints under lamplight, bracelets and rings serving less as decoration than as a symbol of ornamental control. The boy learns that a necklace or clasp may protect or mark him for attention, that these artifacts carry a language as precise as any spoken word, and as he moves through the house, the marble floors echo under his sandals, a reminder that each step is watched, measured, and remembered. In this environment, the most mundane tasks become trials of endurance and calculation. And yet, for all the discipline and fear, moments of quiet defiance flicker, a shared glance between boys, a whispered memory of a home long lost, a hidden gesture of compassion. These fragments of humanity persist, invisible to the eyes of masters yet vital for the survival of spirit. Even as identity is chipped away by constant obedience, small acts of memory and resistance preserve a fragile continuity of self. As the evening wanes, the boy is returned to the basement quarters, the smell of wine and oil lingering like a ghost. He lies on his thin mattress, listening to the muffled laughter of guests above, and contemplates the paradox of this life. Men who write of justice and virtue in public can commit cruelty in private without a trace of contradiction. The chains may be invisible here, yet their presence is undeniable, etched into posture, into instinct, into every calculated gesture. He closes his eyes, but sleep offers little escape. The house is a living labyrinth, a stage where intellect and cruelty dance together, and he is both spectator and actor, audience and commodity. Outside, the city of Athens glitters in fading light, a civilization admired for its brilliance. Yet within these walls, beauty is measured, obedience rewarded, and the human spirit tested in ways the public would never comprehend. The boy knows, deep in the marrow of his bones, that this is only the beginning, and that tomorrow will bring new lessons in fear, in silence, and in survival. Even when the iron collars are gone, you feel the weight of them in your chest, a phantom pressure that tightens with every heartbeat. The sound of leather straps snapping, of chains clattering on stone, reverberates in memory, layering itself over every footstep, every whisper. Freedom is a concept measured not by the absence of restraint, but by the slow unlearning of fear. Across centuries, the stories of these young men survive in fragments, carried in whispers and glances. If you are drawn to the hidden truths of history, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share where you are watching from. It's remarkable that tales from ancient Athens can reach viewers from every corner of the globe, uniting us in wonder, sorrow, and curiosity about lives lived in shadows and silence. Every comment and connection is a testament to the endurance of human stories, echoing across time. In the dimly lit quarters of the household, Where torches sputter against thick stone walls, former concubines move like ghosts. Their bodies have been claimed, catalogued, and measured, but their minds harbor secrets the masters cannot see. Marcus and Alexios speak in half-words, a language only they understand, recounting memories of distant hills and olive groves, of homes where laughter was untainted and skies were not filled with the smoke of hearths and industry. In these moments, the boys are neither slave nor ornament. They are archivists of their own humanity, preserving stories and identities that society seeks to erase. Every day, the lessons of compliance leave indelible marks. The boy now recognizes the rhythm of the house, footsteps echoing on marble floors, the soft scrape of sandals, the subtle shift of conversation as a master approaches. Each movement carries a potential threat, a reminder that vigilance is survival. Yet within this rhythm, subtle acts of resistance bloom. A shared glance, a touch of reassurance, a quietly hummed song, small rebellions against the erasure of self, fragments of memory stitched into the fabric of their confinement. The psychological architecture of slavery in Athens is as precise as it is brutal. Men who publicly debate virtue and justice engage privately in acts that strip children of voice and autonomy. The masters are not brute savages. They are scholars, politicians, and philosophers who rationalize cruelty as natural order. And yet, paradoxically, this environment fosters resilience. The concubines adapt, learning to navigate the currents of intimidation and pleasure, to anticipate whims and to shield their interior selves even while their bodies are on display. Philemon, barely older than a boy himself, whispers lessons he has learned. Observe, serve, but let your mind wander. Remember the hills. Remember the voices of your home. They cannot take that from you. These clandestine teachings circulate quietly, a network of memory and defiance threading through the household. Each story of survival is carefully hidden, coded in gestures or the cadence of speech. In their solidarity, they reclaim fragments of their identity, and even in the absence of freedom, they wield a quiet power over their own minds. The cultural identity of the captives proves resilient. Greek language, song, and ritual are preserved in stolen moments, in whispered laments beneath mattresses or behind closed doors. They tell tales of heroic ancestors, of distant harvests, of festivals long past. Even as masters demand obedience, these acts of remembrance become a lifeline, a way to anchor selfhood amid disorientation and terror. The juxtaposition is stark. A society producing epic poetry and political theory while simultaneously normalizing the systematic destruction of its most vulnerable. The consequences of this duality are profound. Over time, the boys internalize the rhythms of fear, learning to anticipate cruelty as a force of nature rather than an exception. Their bodies become tools of endurance, their minds arenas of concealment. Yet the spirit persists, fragile but unbroken, threading stories and memory into acts of quiet defiance. They bear witness in whispers and glances, ensuring that the existence of cruelty is recorded, even if history largely ignores it. Moments of ritual and public display, such as symposiums or inspections, expose the paradox most vividly. Guests reclining on couches, discussing ethics and virtue, treat the slaves as living instruments of their pleasure. The boy watches, silent, cataloging gestures, expressions, and preferences, understanding that observation is itself a form of survival. Each act of compliance is weighed against the unspoken promise of security and the invisible threads of camaraderie that bind the captives together. Night falls, and the basement is quiet but alive with memory. The boys whisper stories of home, of ancestors, of distant valleys and olive trees. They recount the lives they once led, safeguarding fragments of identity against erasure. And yet, shadows persist, of past beatings, of nights spent trembling under the gaze of the masters, of lessons in invisibility etched into their very bodies. Even when chains are removed, the echo of leather and iron is never fully gone. As dawn approaches, the boy rises, aware that the day will bring the same performances, the same calculated gestures, the same subtle acts of defiance. He is changed, no longer the child who walked barefoot through olive groves, yet neither is he fully consumed by the system that seeks to erase him. He exists in a liminal space, a witness to cruelty, a guardian of memory, a vessel of resilience. And in this space, one question lingers. How much of humanity can endure when civilization itself sanctions its systematic destruction? The city of Athens glimmers beyond the stone walls, a civilization celebrated for its brilliance and its art. Yet inside, the ghosts who remember move silently, carrying stories that defy erasure. Their presence is a quiet testament to survival, a haunting reminder that behind the splendor of marble and philosophy lies a darkness often left unspoken, one that the echoes of chains ensure will never be forgotten.